Mr. President, I appreciate very much having had the opportunity to hear those words from what I can only describe as an alternate reality from the one that I inhabit anyway. First, let me say that the very first paragraph of the resolution is this: whereas the 2014 National Climate Assessment stated the most recent decade was the nation's warmest on record. U.S. temperatures are expected to continue to rise. There is some evidence that certain temperatures have been flat for a few years. Atmospheric temperatures. What that little rhetorical device omits to consider is two things. One, 93% of the heat that comes onto the Earth from global warming goes into the oceans. And maybe 3 or 4% actually goes into the atmosphere. 93 to 3. So if there's any change in the ocean which regulates the temperature of the Earth, then it's going to have a pronounced effect on atmospheric temperature. And the ocean continues to warm. People will say, no, the Earth stopped warming. It hasn't warmed for 12 years, 15 years, whatever they say. No. If you actually look at it, the oceans are continuing to warm. There's been this step in atmospheric temperature at a certain level. The other thing that gets left out when our friends say that is that this isn't the first step. You look at the history of how this got to be the hottest decade on record, and over you can look at the graph and you see these steps. To pretend that each step is the last one runs completely against the science. So to say that we had no warming is just not factual. To say that the government, he used the word colluding, is colluding together. That's a fairly tough word to use. Let me tell you some of the government agencies who are so-called colluding together and believe that climate change is real and that carbon pollution is causing it. How about NASA? We trust them to send our astronauts into space. We trust them to deliver a rover the size of an SUV to the surface of Mars safely and drive it around, sending data and pictures back from Mars to us. You think these people know what they're talking about? We trust NOAA with our weather predicting, and that's what they tell us. Nobody's saying they're incompetent at weather predicting. Don't listen when people are warning you about storms. But somehow when they talk about climate change, that's colluding. How about the United States Navy? The Commander-in-Chief of our Pacific Command, Admiral Locklear, has said that the #1 threat we face in the Pacific theater comes from climate change. Is he colluding when he says that? This is a career Navy man who the people of America have trusted with the security of our Pacific theater. And it's exactly consistent with what the Department of Defense Quadrennial Defense Review says both last time, 4 years ago, and most recently. And if you want to ignore the federal government, if you live in a world in which you think the federal government colludes with itself to make up things that aren't true, okay. But look at the property casualty insurance and reinsurance industry. They're the people with the biggest bet on this. They have billions of dollars riding on getting it right. And they say climate change is real, carbon pollution is causing it, we've got to do something about it. So does the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, because they care about the effect that this will have on the people who have the least. So does every major U.S. scientific society, every single one. So you can take a poll or a petition and say that it has 30,000 names on it. I'm told that among the names on that petition are the Spice Girls, are people from MASH like Dr. Frank Burns. It's almost a comedic effort. And when you say that there are 9,000 that have degrees, that's what, 0.00003% of our population of 300 million? Maybe I got a zero wrong there. The idea that you can't find 9,000 people who think the Earth is flat. is a bit of a stretch. And the idea that we should base our policy on a petition that imaginary people are on, rather than on what NASA and NOAA and the United States Navy and the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops and every major scientific society and the entire property casualty insurance reinsurance industry are telling us, it's just extraordinary. And if you want to go into the private sector, you have to look no further than Coke and Pepsi. Look no further than Walmart. Look no further than Mars. You can go over there to the candy drawer and you can get wonderful Mars products. It's a huge company. They are going carbon neutral and they are desperately concerned about climate change. Look at Nike, look at Google, look at Apple. American company after American company. The only place, other than, of course, the 9,000 people who joined the Spice Girls and Major Frank Burns on this petition, where denial is anything credible any longer, is here in Congress, where the money from the fossil fuel industry still has such a pernicious effect. But even among the Republicans, I'll close by saying this and yield to my distinguished chairman, even among your Republicans, they're losing their young voters on this. People know better. People know better. You poll Republicans who are under the age of 35, and a majority of them will say that somebody who believes in climate denial is ignorant, out of touch, or crazy. That's what the young Republicans think about that position. So time is on our side. The day will come when the United States Senate can face the fact that climate change is real. And I want to thank Senator Klobuchar and salute her for her effort to bring such a non-controversial proposition to the floor in the form of a resolution. Such a non-controversial and factual proposition, and it's a measure of our times and a measure of this body and a measure of the influence on it that it was not passed by unanimous consent, but was objected to by the Republicans. I yield the floor.